And in the meantime, if you have any problems or anything like that, please send those through, and I'll try to I'll send you a little message back to hopefully get any issues corrected. Um, we will go ahead and get started. And like I said, we are recording, so if you do need to jump off and do something else, we will send a link with the presentation a little bit later today. And if you do have any questions that you think of later, please feel free to email those in and we'll get those answered. So we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this morning. My name is Amanda Hancock, and I'm with Brekke Tours and Travel. And on the line is Renato from GJ Travel, one of our partners in Iceland. And you are here to learn all about Iceland, the land of fire and ice. And so I'm going to turn it over to Renato and let him educate you on all the possibilities to see and things to see and do in this great country. Renato.
Hello, hello, Reykjavik calling. My name is Renato. You can call me the Iceman from Iceland if that is any easier. And I'm calling from a company called GJ Travel that is in business since 1931. So we know a little bit something about Iceland. So this is where I'm from. They are somewhere between North America and Europe. And this is a red island. So our neighbor is Greenland, the large island next to Iceland. Flying from the eastern part of North America is about 5 hours, while from the western part of North America is usually 7 to 8 hours flight. Iceland is often combined with Scandinavia, but you can't drive from Scandinavia to Iceland, so you always have to take a flight. So a flight to Norway is roughly 2.5 hours, while a flight to London would be about 3 hours, 2.5 to 3 hours flight. So let's start with telling you that we have actually the wrong name, because Iceland should be named Greenland, while Greenland should be named Iceland. And as you can see, the big island Greenland is not very green. Greenland is actually 90% ice, while Iceland is only 11% ice. So we should be Greenland, and our neighbor Greenland should be Iceland. And that gives us a lot of explanation to do. How ice cold is Iceland, and can you survive when you visit Iceland? But that's why I'm here and telling you more about it. Iceland is about the same size as the US state of Kentucky or the island of Cuba. And only 11% of our country is covered by ice, or we call that glaciers. In Iceland, 330,000 people. 65% live in the capital city of Reykjavik, and the rest of the country is basically not much populated. 4/5 of the country actually cannot even be populated. It's just one big wilderness of desert, mountains, and glaciers. So here you have a map of Iceland, and you can see there's basically one main road going around the country. We call that road the ring road, or road number 1. There's actually no road called number 2, 3, 4, 5. So road number 1 is our main road, kind of our highway, but it's not a highway type of road. So if you travel the shortest way around Iceland on road number 1, that would be roughly 840 miles. And that would require basically 8 days traveling around Iceland. Most people, of course, will not just stick on road number 1. They will always do some kind of detours, usually ending up with about 1,200 miles. And therefore, definitely, you need 8 days, 7 nights to tour around Iceland. If you kind of want to take every road that is on the outer circle and then the different fjords, you might easily end up with 1,900 miles. So then you need more days. So probably I just answer here the first main question. How long does it take to see all of Iceland? That would be 1 week or longer. But if you do not have 1 week to travel in Iceland, especially it's very popular to have a stopover in Iceland between North America and Europe, and people might stay in the capital city for just 1, 2, 3, 4 nights. And whatever you see here in the circle, that would be kind of the area you can visit comfortably in form of a day excursion. But if you want to see the rest of Iceland, you kind of have to move away from Reykjavik and stay in different location. And that's when you start traveling on road number 1 around the island. And that's when you get to this 1 week trip. So if you do less than 1 week, usually the overnight stay or the area you stay is within this circle on the map. So this is very typical when you do a stopover of 1 to 3 nights. But anyway, even when you visit Iceland just for 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights, you will always see these typical features Iceland is known for. Now, I cannot point anything out on the map in this presentation, but it means you will always see waterfalls, you will always see lava fields, you will see volcanic features, you see fjords, you see birds, you see glaciers. So all the features known to Iceland, it doesn't matter that you travel 1 week around Iceland or basically just 2 days in Iceland, those natural features are also within that circle or of course along the road. Now, what is the best time to travel in Iceland? We say that we have 2 main seasons. One is our summer. Summer in Iceland is considered June to August, when we have basically up to 24 hours of daylight. That's the time of the midnight sun. It's clearly the best time to see and experience our nature. So if you really want to see the colorful nature of Iceland, it has to be summer. It's our warmest time. It's best for wildlife, especially bird watching and whale watching, and for anyone that is an outdoor active person, clearly hiking, biking, river rafting, kayaking, fishing, camping. This is the best time to do it in summer. The winter time is our other main season, and the main reason why people visit Iceland in the winter time, which is usually considered kind of from October to April. The reason for it is mainly the northern lights. But the landscapes looks kind of the same. I mean, it's still the hot springs, the geysers, the waterfalls, the volcano craters is there in summer or winter. But the main difference is then the daylight and it is the temperatures. In the summertime, when we have up to 24 hours, I always say a joke that, even when you have 24 hours of daylight, you still might actually get rain in Iceland. But the picture here, you see someone with an umbrella. The umbrella is a very not functional tool in our country because Iceland is one of the windiest places on earth, and therefore an umbrella is actually not the right thing when it rains, because usually it rains from all sides. So you may better make sure that you are dressed with a windproof and rainproof clothing. So this is how summer could look like. So definitely it gets green, we get flowers, the colors are the most beautiful, the midnight sun. Yes, in Iceland we do eat ice cream. These are the kind of colors you have in the summertime. Iceland has about 10,000 waterfalls. Seeing all this water in the waterfalls, summer is clearly the best time. This is how winter could look like. So yeah, we expect some snow, we expect northern lights, and the colors are completely different in winter than they are in summer. So if you want the warmest temperature, it's clearly the summer, but the winter is not as freezing as our name of the country indicates. And yes, that I come now to how hot or cold is it in Iceland? So our summers are kind of mild. You might call it a fully air-conditioned country. So the temperatures are somewhere in the 50s to the 60s. The 21st of June is our longest day. It's a time when the sun does not set. So the longest daylight we have in summer, especially June, July, and August. So it never really gets hot in Iceland. It's kind of a mild temperature. In the winter time, surprising, maybe where you live, it might feel actually hot when you would visit Iceland in the winter time, because our winter temperature is basically 0 degrees Celsius, which means about 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So we have kind of a similar temperature in the winter like New York, London, or continental Europe. So we are not the coldest place in Europe in the winter time, even with a name called Iceland. Surprisingly, we cannot even guarantee snow in Iceland. So as a joke, I say usually we are not named Snowland, we are named Iceland, because with 11% of glaciers, we can always guarantee ice from the glaciers. But we are actually too warm with 30 degrees Fahrenheit to produce and guarantee snow. But people still have to remember the location where we are, up very north, that we have shorter daylights in the winter time. So our shortest daylight, roughly 5 hours, means 21st of December. 21st of June is our longest daylight when the sun does not set, while 21st of December we roughly have 5 hours of daylight. So it's really not a huge difference when we call it from temperature. Winter somewhere around 0 degrees Celsius, while in the summer somewhere 12 to 18 degrees Celsius. So it's from the 30s to the 50s or 60s in Fahrenheit. So why do people travel to Iceland? So the main reasons are really nature, outdoor activities, and culture. In regards to nature, you can call Iceland totally different to anything else in Europe, or clearly different to North America. Sometimes we can call Iceland almost like planet Iceland. It's just so different. It's a volcanic land, very little vegetation, so it's all about volcanic features. It's a very barren land. And it's this giant wilderness. So a country like Iceland, or the reason to visit Iceland, might be pretty similar to a reason to visit Alaska, Canada, maybe New Zealand, Argentina, these kind of countries. You really go there for nature, scenery, and landscape. And the way how to experience such a giant wilderness is usually by outdoor activities. So the more you hike, the more you bike, you do the river rafting and kayaking and glacier hiking, these kind of activities, the more you can experience and see the country. So Iceland is really a classical adventure destination and outdoor active place. So the more activity, the more adventure you like, Iceland becomes paradise. And yes, as you might remember, 300,000 people live in Iceland. There's a little bit of culture in our country, definitely influenced by the Vikings that inhabited over 1,000 years ago our island. You see what the picture on the bottom right, you see their horses. In Iceland, our population is the following. We have about 100,000 horses. That means basically for 3 people, we have 1 horse. So that is only Mongolia who could actually compete with us for that. And we have 300,000 people. We have 700,000 sheep. So it's similar to New Zealand, double amount of sheep than people. And then we have about 15 million puffins. And then we also have this hidden population. These are the elves and trolls. And please do not question me if they exist. Trolls and elves exist in Iceland. And if I would be an elf, I also would live in Iceland. Now, when we talk about nature, what do I mean with it? It's clearly those volcanic landscape, meaning volcanoes, hot springs, geysers, lava-filled black beaches. We have about 15 to 20 active volcanoes, but as volcanic mountains, it's over 100 volcanic mountains that we have. Waterfalls, we probably have about 10,000 waterfalls in Iceland. So it's a lot of waterfalls. Sometimes people ask me like, why do we have to see so many waterfalls? Now, I just answer, go to Italy, and how many churches you have to look at. Go to India, there's a lot of temples there. So our waterfalls are 10,000 uniquely different, beautiful waterfalls. You don't have to see them all, but they will not be boring because they all are uniquely beautiful and different. Remember, 11% of our country is ice. Yes, we have several glaciers in Iceland, including the largest glacier of Europe, actually bigger than all other glaciers in Europe combined. More ice you can only find in Greenland and in Antarctica. We have fjords, mountains, rivers, lakes, ocean, desert landscape. We have really wilderness. We probably are the only real wilderness of Europe. We have all these open spaces, and we have the Northlands in the winter and the midnight sun in the summer. And we have millions and millions of birds. We have some reindeer. We have 17 species of whales in our waters. When I talked about outdoor activities and soft adventures, especially for group travel, we more focus on soft adventures instead of really the activities or adventure tours. So it's usually this glacier connected activities like a glacier hike, snowmobiles, ice caves, boat trips between floating icebergs. Then we have using, of course, our hot springs. So some of those hot springs you might have heard about, the famous ones like the Blue Lagoon or the nature bath at Lake Mývatn. But then we use our horses. So we go horseback riding, we go bird watching and whale watching, fishing, sea angling. We have the lava caves. There's a lot of different activities. Some of them we call soft adventures, so the physically not very demanding activities that easily can be done by seniors, or we do by group tours, like a whale watching or bird watching, a boat trip between floating icebergs, a boat trip in a fjord, even a glacier hike. Or definitely bathing in the Blue Lagoon are not physically demanding activities, so kind of everybody can do that. When it gets to culture, yeah, it's our horses, it's our farms, but for maybe younger people, our culture might more mean music like Björk. It might be our Icelandic football team. It might be Game of Thrones or other films that have been filmed in Iceland. So culture is always a part that we integrate on our tours or when you travel around Iceland. When it gets to hotels, important to know there are no 5-star hotels in Iceland, so 4-star is at the moment the highest rating in Iceland, and are usually located mainly in Reykjavik and very few others in the countryside in southern Iceland. Hotels are usually small, so on average hotel size is around 50 to 60 rooms, especially in the countryside. Hotels often might not look very exciting and beautiful from outside, but I say once you're inside and look outside, then you want National Geographic life. You really want a room with a view, and that's what Iceland usually has. So in Iceland, we don't like the trees that much, so definitely we don't want a tree in front of a window because we really want the view. As some of you might know, sometimes it's kind of challenging getting a hotel room in Iceland because even though we are only 300,000 people, we have about 2.5 million visitors, and yeah, sometimes we run out of rooms. So therefore, many guests book very early to get into their favorite hotel. But usually I say don't focus too much on the hotel because a trip to Iceland is really a journey and not the hotel as your destination. So focus on the journey, and at the end of the day, you just need a clean room, a good bed, a good shower to overnight in order to move on to your next location and continue your journey. Eating for many people is the favorite subject. Yes, we do have food in Iceland. We are an island in the North Atlantic, so we eat fish and seafood. So we can say we are fish and seafood heaven. Remember, we have 700,000 sheep. Yes, we eat them. So lamb is our most favorite meat. There's a few chickens, so we eat them too. Then dairy products, of course, we have as well. And if anyone is vegetarian, he does not have to worry. Vegetarian meals are available too, clearly with a smaller selection than in the more tropical countries. I go back for the food because you might have the question, how expensive is eating in Iceland? So usually I say lunch, when we start from a sandwich, could be $10. When we go up to a proper meal, like 2 course, could easily be 35 US dollar for a 2-course lunch. Dinner, now, if you talk about pizza and burger, yeah, this can be done somewhere from US dollar 15 to US dollar probably 30. But when we talk about a 3-course meal in a good restaurant, we have to calculate anywhere from US dollar 50 onwards. So meals are probably more expensive than they are in the US, but food in Iceland is really, really good. So mostly we can actually talk about organic food with fresh fish, fresh seafood, and the lamb that just comes from the interior, from the country, have been grazing in the mountains. So it's really fresh and good food that we serve in Iceland. Souvenirs, probably Iceland is not considered to be a shopping paradise, but if you want to bring typical souvenirs, not the made in China ones, then we talk about lava jewelry, we talk about the woolen products. Again, our 700,000 sheep contribute to our souvenir industry. So if you need warm clothing for your extra cold winters in the northern part of the US, our Icelandic woolen sweaters, gloves, and scarves are really, really good. Then Icelandic music and books are amazing, especially when we talk about the books. Iceland is a very picturesque country, so we are basically number one on Instagram, and we really produce beautiful books and postcards. The Blue Lagoon has their own beauty line, and anyone wants to have an Icelandic snaps, we have one called Brennivin, or translated Black Death. It's actually not very good, but on a cold winter day, it warms you up. And of course, seafood products or even chocolate if you want some food to take home. And of course, the outdoor clothing, as we are really an outdoor active country, we have a lot of Icelandic brands in the outdoor clothing industry. I work for a coach company, so yeah, we have a lot of buses in Iceland, especially there we have this type of buses that travel through the rivers. So the one on the top left is a Highland coach 4-wheel drive, and this is the one that travels over very difficult terrain and travels through glacial rivers, because in the interior of our country, so not on road number 1, we have really rough roads. So it's the 4-wheel driving with a bus. Otherwise, buses in Iceland tend to be very modern. So they have air conditioning, they have, of course, free Wi-Fi, they have a toilet on board, so especially the larger buses. And I work for a company that is specialized in group tours, and these are escorted group tours, so the local guide really matters to have on a tour. So if you want to be informed about how is it to live in Iceland, how those volcanoes work, how do these glaciers work, what's the deal about the Vikings, and many other things. That's when our guides really bring Iceland alive. And I might even tell you one of those troll and elf stories. Now let's travel together around Iceland. So we travel on road number 1, whether your guests or clients would travel by rented cars on a self-drive tours, or your clients would join escorted group tour by bus. Let's just travel together on the road number 1 around Iceland, so roughly 2,000 kilometers, 1,200 miles journey around Iceland. We start in the west, go north, travel east, then to the south and back to Reykjavik. So we start in Reykjavik, our capital city, so roughly a population of 210,000 people in the greater capital area. So that's 65% of the Icelandic population living at one spot. So it's the northernmost capital. Anything to do with culture, nightlife, and shopping, it's all there in Reykjavik because that's where the people live. But also you can just go a short trip by boat, whale watching and puffin watching. You can see the midnight sun. If you find a dark location, you might even see the northern light. What I find very special about living in Reykjavik is that just in 15 minutes drive, you get out in the real Icelandic nature. You get to spots where you might believe that you're truly the first person ever getting to that location, that no one was there ever before. So yes, you get to those places where you feel you're the first person ever getting there. And that's just outside Reykjavik. Now imagine the rest of the country. So here are a couple of photos from Reykjavik. It's a very colorful city, basically no high-rise buildings. You can see the midnight sun from Reykjavik. Now we travel west. We're going to see some of those 100,000 horses. We might see seals. We pass some volcano craters, the smaller ones, so those easy to climb up. We stop there. It might take just half an hour to go up a volcano crater, around and down again. We might see some of those Viking farms that have grass on the roof. So these are the torf houses or torf farms or torf churches that still have this old traditional Viking constructions of grass roofs and torf walls. So we travel here around one of many, many fjords. And as you can see, vegetation is very limited. So usually in Iceland, we have a very good view and the air is really clean. The colors are wonderful. So it's a country easy to photograph. Now we reach north. The second biggest city in Iceland is called Akureyri. And Akureyri has only 17,000 people. I repeat, 17,000 people in Iceland's second biggest city. So yeah, our cities are not very big. Therefore, we usually say, concentrate on your journey and not on the different villages and towns, because they probably just help you to get some food, gasoline, and a place to sleep. What's in between those places, that's what matters. But in Akureyri, we have a botanical garden, so you see there some of our limited vegetation, flowers and trees. But nearby, we have Lake Mývatn, which is a paradise for bird watching. For example, there we have over 50 species of ducks. Lake Mývatn is also paradise for anything that we can call geological paradise. Any kind of crater, volcanic features on hot springs are there. There are hot springs, you better don't put your fingers inside, while there are other hot springs like the nature bath, which are amazing to go bathing. So the nature bath at Lake Mývatn is kind of the blue lagoon of the north, but not as heavily visited as the Blue Lagoon in the south. We have here one picture of a waterfall, Godafoss, but you might remember we have over 10,000 waterfalls in Iceland. So you will see a lot of waterfalls when you travel on road number 1 and tour around Iceland. So here one of these volcano craters that basically takes only 10 minutes to get up there, but it takes a little bit longer to circle the whole crater. So here, still in the north or northeast, we are still at Lake Mývatn area. There you see these natural hot springs. We have Europe's largest or most powerful waterfall. And we travel through a desert landscape to get to the east. So the interior of Iceland is one giant desert. But you actually, in one part of our ring road, you actually have to drive through the desert. It is an asphaltic road, so paved road, so you don't need a four-wheel drive vehicle to get from north to east. So here another one of our crater, or actually crater lakes. Now we reach the east, or the east fjords. So on the other side of the ocean would be Norway, kind of a 2 hours flight. So the east fjords are our steep mountains, and on the bottom of those mountains along the fjord we find a few small fishing villages. Then we get to Vatnajökull. Vatnajökull is Iceland's largest glacier, also Iceland's largest national park. So Vatnajökull glacier is bigger than all other glaciers in Europe combined. So there are giant glacier, you have glacial lagoons with floating icebergs. In summertime you can actually go on a boat trip and sail between those floating icebergs. And basically across the street is a beach called the Diamond Beach, because the floating icebergs, they just have to go through a short river out to the ocean waves bring those icebergs back to the beach, crush them in 1,000 small pieces, and they sparkle then like diamonds on the black sand when the sun shines into those pieces of ice. But you don't need to take them home and believe that you have some valuable diamond in your hand, because eventually they melt. But photographically, this is wonderful. More people go actually to the Diamond Beach to try to make this brilliant Instagram picture than on the ice lagoon itself. So here you have a picture from the East Fjords when we have our lupin flowers and our steep mountains just bordering the ocean. Here you have a picture of the Diamond Beach. You see those small diamonds lying on the black sand. It's the volcanic ash, or a volcanic beach. Now we reach the south. The south is known for waterfalls, black beaches, glaciers, and also our maybe not so popular volcano called Eyjafjallajökull. Eyjafjallajökull volcano and glacier erupted in 2010 and created quite a lot of airplane chaos, and you might have had some customers who actually got stuck because of Eyjafjallajökull somewhere in the world, because the ash of the volcanoes was not a friend of the modern airlines or airline industry. So in the south coast we have more glaciers, more volcanoes, more waterfalls, more black beaches. I forgot the puffins. Puffins in Iceland, they live in Iceland from May to August. So they usually come beginning of May, leave beginning of August. The rest of the year they are somewhere out in the ocean. There are different locations around the Ring Road number 1 where the puffins can be found. So they're in the north, in the east, in the south, and in the west. So there's a specific location where it's easy to see some of those 15 million puffins also living in Iceland. Here's one picture where we just drive through a giant lava field. Yes, there are going to be a lot of lava fields in Iceland because it's a volcanic island with our volcanoes and hot springs and geysers. So here you have one of those black lava beaches on the south coast. Here one of our many waterfalls. You can actually even walk behind this waterfall. It's called Seljalandsfoss on the south coast. A very popular waterfall to photograph. You might have heard about this tour here, the Golden Circle. The Golden Circle is the most popular day excursion from Reykjavik. It's about an 8-hour day tour, but it's always a part of an Iceland Circle tour. So you travel on road number 1 and tour 8 days around Iceland. You always include the Golden Circle. The reason why it's called Golden Circle is because of the waterfall Gullfoss. So the waterfall there in the middle. Gullfoss means the golden waterfall. So it's one of our most beautiful waterfalls that we have in Iceland. Just 10 minutes drive from Gullfoss waterfall is our hot springs called Geysir or Geyser. So it's the erupting hot springs. It's kind of like Old Faithful at the Yellowstone National Park, but it erupts about every 5 to 7 minutes. So if you missed to take out this one picture, just wait 5 or 7 minutes and it will erupt again. Also nearby we have Thingvellir National Park. What's special about there, it is geologically spoken very important, because there the American continental plate and the Eurasian continental plate drift apart. So you actually can walk, even snorkel or dive between the North American continental plate and the Eurasian continental plate. So geologically spoken, it's a very important location. Historically spoken, it's also very important, because that's the place where the Vikings founded the first democracy in the world. So Iceland is actually the oldest democracy in the world. It happened over 1,000 years ago. Probably when the Vikings did that, no one really realized the real value of democracy, but the reason was simply they didn't want any king ruling them. They wanted to be free men and deciding together what's right and wrong. So today, Thingvellir National Park is a UNESCO protected World Heritage, and basically anyone visiting Iceland usually goes to Gizir, Gullfoss and Thingvellir, making out the golden circle. They also want to spice up a little bit with culture. They might visit Friðheimar, which is a farm, usually a tomato greenhouse farm, and they also breed horses. So there you can meet our greenhouse tomatoes and cucumbers, and also you can meet some of those Icelandic horses. So here we have a picture of Gullfoss waterfall. We have a picture of Gizir, or Geysir, the hot spring area. And here you have a picture up from the National Park Thingvellir. So it's taken from the American continental plate, and when you look over the flat land, kind of the Northwest land, on the other side where you see the mountains, that would be then the Eurasian continental plate. Now we get to the Reykjanes Peninsula. That's the location where Keflavik International Airport is located. So if you need to book a flight, the airport code is KEF. KEF means Keflavik. So you don't book a flight to Reykjavik, you book a flight to Keflavik. It's located 45 minutes away from the capital city Reykjavik, located on the Reykjanes Peninsula. And usually when people land in Reykjavik, they kind of wonder, oh my God, where did I get to right now? Because it's a barren land. It's no vegetation. It's just sand and rocks and volcanoes. But there is also the famous Blue Lagoon. So back to the Blue Lagoon, back to the Blue Lagoon. It's probably the most visited spot in Iceland. The Blue Lagoon is a geothermal hot spring bath. What makes the Blue Lagoon so different or unique to any other hot spring bath in Iceland is that the water of the Blue Lagoon is salty. So it's a hot water salt bath. And because the Blue Lagoon is located so close to the ocean water filters through the lava fields and it gets heated up by hot magma. And then the minerals in the Blue Lagoon that combination gives a mineral called silica, and that creates this milky blue color. Sometimes you see on picture people with a white face at the Blue Lagoon, and then you don't have to be afraid that people are sick because they're white in the face. No, they just want to become younger and want to become more beautiful. That's why we also have these beauty products from the Blue Lagoon. The Blue Lagoon is pretty expensive, so if you want to enter the Blue Lagoon, you usually have to pay roughly $80 entrance fee and towel to get to the Blue Lagoon. So anyone who is not interested in bathing or swimming at the Blue Lagoon, kind of no reason really to pay such a large amount of money just to take one picture. So really it is a place to go bathing, and usually people spend about 2 to 3 hours at the Blue Lagoon. It is important that you need to make a reservation, so don't just sell the Blue Lagoon as optional, or the people can just decide on the spot whether they want to go or not. The Blue Lagoon is basically always sold out, and usually many weeks or at least many days upfront sold out. So if people really want to go to Blue Lagoon and make it as one of their highlights during their Iceland visit, they have to book the Blue Lagoon in advance. Otherwise, they might just not be able to enter, because they don't want to oversell the Blue Lagoon, so they make sure they have just a maximum amount of people at the same time bathing at the Blue Lagoon. Also in the area of the Blue Lagoon, you will have locations where you can walk between two continental plates. There are lighthouses, there are fishing villages, there are bird cliffs, there are hot springs. Here a picture about the Interior Highlands, the Interior Highlands. So it's this giant desert of glaciers, rivers, mountains, lava fields. It is really adventure land. So if you don't want to meet anybody, yeah, you should just go to the Interior Highlands of Iceland. That's about 4/5 of our country that looks similar to the pictures showing you right now. Now comes another important unpopular chapter, the Northern Lights. The Northern Lights can only be seen from middle of September to middle of April, so our winter. So if you want to see the Northern Lights, you will have to travel in the Icelandic winter. The most popular tour that we offer is the Northern Light Exploration. We spend 6 out of 7 nights in the darkness in order to maximize the chances to see the Northern Lights. So here you see kind of the routing where we go. It's in West Iceland, it's in South Iceland, and going again to Vatnajökull Glacier. So we are the second day we spend, first day is always arrival day, second day we spend in West Iceland. So we're having the fjords, we have the mountains, we have the volcano craters, we have the fishing villages, we have the waterfalls. So here's one picture of Raunfossar waterfall. So one of the waterfalls you have not seen yet. So you see volcanic craters and mountains and lava fields. In the evening, we just go out in the garden of the hotel, look up, and hopefully we see the Northern Lights. The next day, we go to the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. We haven't traveled that one on our round trip, so we go there in the very west on the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. Culturally, we go to a shark farmer, and it's, yeah, either I love it or hate it, because eating fermented shark smells. Other people would actually say it stinks. But then you drink a Black Death, a Brennivin snaps additionally, and yeah, you get some cultural experience about old Viking traditions, how the Vikings kept their food or basically fermented their food. We make a boat trip on the fjord. We look out for more Northern Lights. We visit Iceland's most photographed mountain, Kirkjufell. Why Instagram made this mountain, Kirkjufell, so famous, I don't know. But someone decided just make pictures and everybody followed. And today Kirkjufell is the most photographed mountain in Iceland. We go to one of those fishing villages. And while we do the boat trip in the fjord, we go fishing, or whatever is eatable, we eat. So here you have a picture in the winter time from one of those fishing villages. We do the Golden Circle, so we go to the Gullfoss waterfall, to Geysi hot spring, and Thingvellir National Park, and again to the tomato farm and meet the Icelandic horses. So you have here a picture from the winter time of Gullfoss waterfall. Then we travel south, again more waterfalls, black beaches, Viking farms, Eyjafjallajökull, volcano glacier, the lava fields, and the different basalt rock formations, so all volcanic features of southern Iceland. So you see here a picture of the black beaches, so one of many black beaches we have in Iceland, because the beaches are from volcanic ash or volcanic rocks. Here you see a photo of one of our folk museums, the old traditional way how the Vikings built their houses and farms. We reach Vatnajökull Glacier, so the largest glacier of Europe, again with the floating icebergs in the ice lagoon, the Diamond Beach, many glacial tongues, another turf church, so the grass-roofed churches, and many of our mountains. When you travel from middle of November to middle of March, you might have the chance to go to a natural ice cave. It's very important because those natural ice caves are very, very famous on Instagram. They make those really brilliant pictures. So many travelers who find Iceland on Instagram want to go to those natural ice caves at Vatnajökull Glacier, but it's important they're only safe to enter and visit from middle of November to middle of March, because they're actually formed during the summertime. So you would ask me in summer, how long is it to walk to a natural ice cave? I wouldn't be able to tell you because I don't know where they will be in the winter time. So they are formed actually in the summertime when the glaciers are melting and the water goes through the crevasses and try to need an exit, and those exits become tunnels which eventually freeze in the winter time, and when they're big enough we can enter them, and these are those natural ice caves. But if it's raining in the winter time, there might come a river out of those ice caves, so you cannot enter. If it's too warm, they might collapse. So they're mostly only safe to enter from November to March. There is actually another ice cave in the western part of Iceland. It's a man-made ice cave, which is open and safe to enter all year round. But important, people asking for the natural ice caves, they're usually only safe to enter middle of November to middle of March. So here you see some of those floating icebergs in our ice lagoon. The name of the lagoon is called Jökulsárlón, in case you have heard its name before. So back to the south coast, yeah, we see the Icelandic horses, more waterfalls, we travel to the Blue Lagoon and hopefully see more northern lights. So here you have a picture about driving through a large lava field, and this is just on road number 1. So we did not make any extra efforts to make a photograph like that. It's just there. Here you have a photo of the Blue Lagoon. And going bathing in a hot spring in Iceland, the weather really doesn't matter. For me or for us in Iceland, usually we say the colder, the windier it is, the better it is to go bathing in a hot spring. Usually in the rest of the world, people go swimming and bathing in cold water to cool down because the air is very hot. In Iceland, we go to swim and bathe in order to warm up because the water is usually warmer than the air. So that's kind of a difference how we use our swimming pools and hot springs. Talking about the Northern Light, because most people want to see the Northern Light and haven't seen it yet, meaning it's kind of a big bucket list for modern travelers that want to see the Northern Light. And depends where you live in the US, Iceland might be shorter and cheaper to get to than having to travel all the way in certain spots of Canada or going to Alaska. So Northern Lights can only be seen from middle of September, middle of April, because that's the time when we have dark nights. You might remember in summertime we have up to 24 hours of daylight, so no really darkness. So if we don't have darkness, we cannot see the Northern Lights. So therefore, middle of September to middle of April. So here you have one photo somewhere in the lava fields looking up the sky, and yeah, there's Northern Lights. So where can you see those Northern Lights? So on the map, it's Alaska, Canada, southern Greenland, Iceland, and the northern part of Scandinavia called Lapland, and the northern coast of Siberia. Iceland is the warmest place of all those places. So for people who don't want to go in really freezing temperatures like Yukon in Canada or Alaska, Iceland sounds pretty warm in the same time and to see the Northern Lights. So for people who want to be at the warmest place to see the Northern Light, that would be Iceland, even though we have a very cold name. So in order to see the northern light, you need dark nights. That's from middle of September to middle of April. You need a clear sky, so it cannot be raining, cloudy, snowing, or having fog. And you need actually solar explosions that produce the northern lights. And when those three elements come together, the darkness, the clear sky, and solar explosion, a realistic chance to see the northern light will be about 2 to 3 days a week. And therefore, the Northern Light holiday business has all to do about maximizing your chances to see the Northern Lights. The longer you stay at a location where is Northern Lights, the better are your chances. So if you just stay 1 or 2 nights in a dark location where we have Northern Lights, your chance is actually only 20 to 30%. Remember, a realistic chance is really 2 to 3 nights a week that you can see the Northern Lights. So if you really want to see the Northern Lights, just come for 1 week and stay in a location that is dark, meaning far away from a city and light pollution. So the longer you stay and darker spot you go, the better are the chances to see the Northern Lights. I can tell you how long the Northern Lights are up in the sky. So for those who don't know the Northern Lights can be for a couple of seconds, a couple of minutes, they come and go, they can be basically for the whole night. Northern Light is a little bit the same as a rainbow. So if I would ask you when and where can you show me the rainbow at the location where you live, and how long does the rainbow last? Probably you can't answer. And it's exactly the same with the Northern Lights. I can't tell you if it's on a Monday or Tuesday, if it's better to travel first week in October or the second week in November or the third week in February. It's the same chances. It is 2 to 3 nights as long we have dark nights, clear sky, and solar explosions. And you don't forget to look up. So I show you a few photos of Northern Lights. They look a little bit blurred in this presentation. So Northern Lights are never the same. They just are in different colors, different shapes, in different activity level. So it all starts from the sun. So it must have a giant explosion on the sun that creates a strong wind, and that wind basically changes into energy, and that energy becomes kind of an electricity that we see in form of lights. So these would be then the Northern Lights that we can see in the polar regions. Back to the location Iceland, and I told you Iceland is the warmest location to see the Northern Lights, because Brekke Tours sells also Northern Light tours to other Scandinavian countries. So basically your clients must make a decision of how cold they want to have it when they go to a location with Northern Lights. Now the temperatures here are in centigrades, so it's in Celsius centigrades. So Iceland is the warmest place with 0 degrees centigrades, while Norway is probably -10, Finland, Sweden could be -20, and definitely the coldest places to see the Northern Light is Greenland, Canada, and Alaska. So yes, we are the warmest place to see the Northern Light, and that makes a huge difference for your day program. And it's very, very important that when people select a Northern Light destination, they should not just focus on when and where can I see the Northern Lights and can you guarantee it? Because those who just listened and understand, the longer I stay in a location where there's Northern Light, the better are the chances. So if you travel 1 week to one of those locations with Northern Lights, you will have to ask your clients or yourself what you want to do at that location for 1 week. You don't go there just for 1 week to look up somewhere between 9 and 12 o'clock at night or after midnight in Canada and Alaska to see if the Northern Light is there. You kind of want to occupy yourself during that 1 week stay at a Northern Light destination. And because Iceland is the warmest place, so the day program in Iceland always means nature sightseeing, combining with soft adventure and culture. So So yes, we're going to have a look in Iceland at those volcanoes, hot springs, geysers, the black beaches, the fjords, all those volcanic landscape. We can go bathing in the Blue Lagoon. We can go to a farm. We can do a boat trip. So we do the nature landscape sightseeing during the day. At night, we stay at dark location and look up in the sky to see if the Northern Light is there. But if your trip would mean during the day winter sport or snow activities, then you have to go to one of those places that are cold and guarantee you snow. So yes, northern part of Scandinavia usually has snow in the winter time. So if you want to go snowshoe walking, reindeer sledging, dog sledging, skiing, ice fishing, you have to go to a place that is colder than Iceland. So that could be Finland, Sweden, Norway. It could be Canada, Alaska, in order to do the winter sport, because they are going to guarantee you snow, and therefore you can do the winter activities and snow sport. But Iceland really means nature sightseeing, soft adventures. So we don't need the snow. But if you want to do a snowmobile tour, we will go on a glacier. If you want to go ice walking or glacier to a glacier hike, we just use the glaciers. We don't have to wait for snow. We can go into an ice cave in the winter time. So we use ice as an element of activities and not snow. Usually the Northern Light can be seen in Iceland before midnight, while usually in Canada and Alaska the Northern Light is seen after midnight. So for the winter, it's the same as in summer. We combine nature, soft adventure, and culture as the element of sightseeing in Iceland. And therefore, I got to the end now of the presentation. And I would like to answer one question that I received up front. Someone asked about camping. Camping is really a summer activity in Iceland, so I wouldn't go camping in Iceland in the winter time. You have to go to designated camping spots. Usually they cost anywhere, I would say, from $5 to $10 you have to pay for camping. They probably have some location where you can use a toilet and take a shower and do some cooking. And if you have any kind of a vehicle, you will have to use these kind of campgrounds. Hopefully I could answer the questions, and hopefully my presentation was helpful, that you know now a little bit more about Iceland than you did before. So I give it back to Amanda.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We did get a couple of questions that came in, and I think you kind of covered the questions about the Northern Lights, but somebody did ask about other places to do geothermal bathing other than the Blue Lagoon. And I know you mentioned Lake Mývatn. Are there other places around Iceland where you can do that?
Yeah, just trying to find the right slide. Maybe I should do it differently. Sorry. And so because then you have the names better, excuse me. So there are 4 locations that I would say are man-made hot springs, or originally they were not. They are of course natural hot springs, but then we built an infrastructure around it. So the Blue Lagoon in the south, so near to Keflavik Airport, located only 20 minutes from the airport and 45 minutes from Reykjavik, is the most famous one. Then on the Golden Circle route, we have the Secret Lagoon. Secret Lagoon is one other hot spring to go bathing. It's no longer really secret, so there's a lot of visitors going there too, because it's located on the Golden Circle, so pretty easy to reach. Then is a place also on the Golden Circle is called Fontana. Fontana is maybe more like a steam bath and sauna type. And then in the north of Iceland, called the Nature Bath at Lake Mývatn, is kind of the Blue Lagoon of the north. So it's very big, amazing view, but the water at the Secret Lagoon, Fontana, and Nature Bath are not salt water like in the Blue Lagoon. These are the hot springs that have an infrastructure. You actually pay entrance fee, and there's a restaurant, there are toilets, there's shower. It's a proper infrastructure. So it's kind of a spa hot spring. But then there are a lot of wilderness hot springs where you have to figure out how to get there, and there's no infrastructure around it. So You kind of have to strip in the wilderness, and whatever is there is there. And you have to find out if the water is too hot or maybe too cold for bathing. But those are then really the natural hot springs.
Okay, great. Do we have any more questions? If you do have a question, there is a chat box down in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can send those questions in, and we'll try to get those answered for you. If you think of something later, we'll be sure you can feel free to email those to us, and we'll be sure and answer those, so that's not a problem. But it doesn't look like we have any more questions at the time. I think you covered all of Iceland. Thank you so much, Renato. It was a great presentation. And we hope that you're interested in traveling to Iceland, whether it be this summer, this winter, or sometime in the future. But we are here to help you, and hopefully you'll join our partner over in Iceland, GJ, and go on an escorted tour so you can hear more about this country from their knowledgeable guides, and just have a great time. I know you'll be well taken care of. Renato, do you have any closing comments?
I can just say, welcome to Iceland. We are open all year round. And in Icelandic, it's called Spes. Just to give you an interesting maybe comment, I do the marketing for Iceland, I believe, probably soon 30 years. But it wasn't maybe shorter than maybe just 15 years ago. If I would travel to America, people would say like, oh my God, you're from Iceland. Why would anyone want to go there? Now, at that time, we had one airline connecting North America with Iceland. Today, you can fly by United, Delta, American Airlines, Air Canada, Iceland Air, and WOW. So it's 6 airlines connecting North America with Iceland. It's probably about 22 to 25 different gateways how you can get to Iceland. I have the feeling when I say now I'm from Iceland, people find it very interesting. Everybody knows someone who wants to go, have just been there, or is really dreaming to go to Iceland. So Iceland, the name Iceland should not scare you away. It's one of the most fascinating countries, and really not everybody has been there. And Iceland is big, so there's a lot of spots. If you want to be alone, yes, we have those spots. So welcome to Iceland. In Icelandic, I can say bless bless, which means goodbye.
All right, thanks, Renato, and thank you everybody for joining us today. If you do have some questions that you submitted on the registration form that we didn't answer, or if there's something that you just submitted online on the presentation, I'll send you an email with the answer to that. If you do think of any other questions, please feel free to give us a call or email us. Our contact information is there on the screen. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will be sending you a copy of the presentation that you can review again later. And thank you again. We hope you have a wonderful afternoon.